So my name is David Rochefort. I'm president of Graduate Hotels. I know I saw several of you back in November. It's great to be back and to meet many other residents of the community. I've been with Graduate for 6 years. We're about a 5-year-old company at this point. We have 22 hotels across the country. We just opened our 22nd in Nashville, Tennessee. This will be the 27th Graduate. We actually are opening 4 hotels in 4 weeks in March, which will be exciting. It's all hands on deck. I'm actually a Cornell grad, and I've been involved in this project for 4.5 years, so there's a tremendous amount of pride, blood, sweat, tears, whatever you want to call it, that's gone into this project. And so we are just tremendously proud of this hotel. We're tremendously proud of the project as a whole. And we're very proud to become what we hope is not just a living room for the Cornell Tech community, but a clubhouse for the Roosevelt Island community as a whole. So I'm going to, if I can remember our presentation, we did bring a few extra people, so everyone I'm going to try to introduce at different points, but Ben just came on recently as our director of sales. He is very important for all of you because I'm going to go back to Chicago tomorrow morning, but he is the face for many of you locally. We'll get into a little bit of the hiring and some of our timelines, but Ben is going to be extremely important for you all, and he'll be taking reservations outside after this meeting personally. So, and then Mark Rose, who's going to wrap this up. I know there's lots of questions around food and beverage and everything that we're planning on doing, and Mark and I and our company have partnered on 2 projects already, one in Seattle and one in Nashville, which he flew in. He's about to open a rooftop in Nashville in a few days and flew in for this to be with you all and to put a face to the name. So he's going to wrap up the presentation, and Jill, who has been our face for you all for years, it feels like at this point, we'll kind of do the typical construction update and give you a run through of where we're at, and then we'll touch on a few other points.
So as you can see up here, and as you probably noticed just looking at the building from what you can see from outside, we're pretty much buttoned up on the exterior, just finalizing a few kind of tiny details and some caulking and things like that. But you saw that the hoist came off the building. Obviously, the crane had come off the building prior to that. So again, just finishing up some of these final details over the next few weeks. Interior, making a lot of progress. We shared pictures last time of the progress of the guest rooms with flooring down, tile in, shower doors, wall covering, and so that's just finishing its way up the building at this point, and we're getting ready to start loading in furniture over the next few weeks. We'll start that process. And then we are, when Diana mentioned before, starting our inspection process, kind of in the May timeframe, looking to open July 1st. So these are some photos from the 18th floor, which is our rooftop lounge. So the top left photo, you can see that's actually a photo looking out, obviously onto a terrace area. And those glass doors will actually be able to open all the way up when it's nice outside, so it can be just sort of this indoor-outdoor experience. You can see that a little bit also in the top right photo, and that's looking toward Manhattan. You can see the bridge in the background. And the photo on the bottom is actually with your back sort of to where the top right photo is, looking back down toward where we'll ultimately have a private dining room as well. Down here is the lobby, so the picture on the right is looking toward the front entry door, so that's a large revolving door, and the swinging doors on either side of it. And then the photo on the left is facing into our lounge, which then turns into our restaurant space. And this is our 3rd floor event space. It has 22-foot high ceilings. And we have that large space right there that you'll see on the left side, and that will actually have a wood ceiling. And then on the right, it's facing into our pre-function meeting room as well. And that is it for construction, if anyone has any questions.
Questions on construction? Christina. The one thing that we had talked about, and may or may not be in your area, jobs. A lot of the community, very excited to start applying, that's one. And you can punt to someone else if
I'm
that's
going to.
appropriate. I thought you might be.
Great.
I saw that. And then the event space. A lot of the community always is looking for space. A lot of nonprofits and small groups and not always able to find space on the island. So this event space looks amazing, and Jane has been great about ensuring a lot of community events into, you know, a space or two in Tata. So what will be the ability for the community potentially to use this event space? I know that often there's a premium cost to that. Is there any difference for community members?
Yeah, so that's a Dave question. Anyone have anything construction related, or I'm just Great. No? Okay, so all you.
Great. I'm going to hold off on answering those because we actually did put some slides to touch on those items. We wanted to show some of the renderings that have started to come together of the ground floor space. You know, one of the things that we are most excited about in terms of a statement is we actually have 5,000 linear feet of books. It's 25,000 books. The first time Ben Weprin, our founder and CEO, and I walked the site, we were just struck by how interesting it is with Cornell Tech and all of their mission in terms of pushing forward from a technology perspective. And we've always imagined this lobby as being the place that human interaction, that you come to share drinks, you come to share conversation. We love that idea of bringing back almost to like the beginning of where learning was, which was truly in textbooks, while everybody in the buildings here are pushing forward with things that we'll learn about 10 years, 15 years down the line. The large statue there is with a famous Chicago artist named Hebrew Brantley. We were really struck with his story. He is a pop culture artist, grew up on the south side of Chicago with gangs and drugs and everything outside of his door. And he actually found his escape in art and professed himself a nerd, for lack of a better term, and started to create these kind of superhero characters. And so this is a very well-known character called Flyboy, which was his kind of superhero-esque image of what he pulled away. And Flyboy's holding a light bulb, because all great ideas do start above us, and much of what Cornell Tech and the campus itself represents. And so this is right as you come through the front door with the front desk, and this is as you start to wrap around, you see the books continue. We're going to have a mural with a local New York City artist, a few nods to the Cornell Big Red throughout, which has been one of the most interesting and fun parts of our job. If you look at a lot of our projects or go to our websites, you know, we are always in a university market tied to a university in some ways, and we tell a lot of the stories of the university itself. And obviously this campus is so unique for us. We're telling a lot of new stories. We call it nostalgia. We're part of telling new traditions that are starting with Cornell Tech itself. But we did find ways to give some nods to the Ithaca campus. We shared some of this previously on the guest room side, but again, just some of these nods that we discussed of telling the story of Roosevelt Island history, in terms of how those benches are upholstered with some oil painting-like depictions of Dutch colonial life, where Roosevelt Island started as a Dutch colony. Do I have that correct?
Hog Island. I think you really should have named it the Hog Hill.
We'll bring it back somewhere. There's definitely a drink on the menu for Hog Island. And then, you know, really just finding a way to intersperse some of the history of the island with nods to Cornell Tech and everything it represents from a technology perspective. So, as Jill mentioned, we have, how many floors are essentially complete minus furniture? We're probably through 4 or 5 at this point.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think there are maybe 3 floors that aren't.
Anything just from a quick design perspective, and I those that we didn't have it blown up, but those are two additional renderings. The left is some of the outdoor seating for the courtyard that we share with the VEC, and the right being some of the restaurant space as you kind of come around and connect into the VEC center. I'm still used to calling it EEC from back in the day. But yes, so anything, just kind of quick reactions or questions on some of the initial renderings before I kind of get into some of the points that I know have been some earlier
Do
questions.
you know at this point, what the cost will be to rent a room?
Guest room?
Yeah.
So we underwrote the project as a whole at about $170, $180, but that means every day, right, we're dynamically pricing based on the market and also our internal, how many rooms we've sold, hopefully at Cornell. So that's kind of the average. We've said in the past, we're targeting about a 15% discount for resident islands, and we're going to create kind of a dedicated booking engine for the residents of the island, pending obviously sellouts or things like that, so that there's an ease of booking. So
Are all the rooms identical?
no, they're
As far
not.
as square footage?
They're not. There's a suite I call the Rochefort suite. I'm David Rochefort, so it's 2 bedrooms on the 17th floor. So we have a presidential suite and a few junior suites throughout the building.
Yeah, we have basically 4, sort of executive or junior suites on each floor, 6 through 17, and then we have the presidential suite on the 17th floor. 6 through 16, and then we have the presidential suite on the 17th floor. But there's a pretty big, because the shape of the building, there's a pretty big range of room types throughout the property. So I think it's between like 260 and like 490 square feet is kind of the
Yeah,
spread.
it's pretty varied. King rooms and double queen rooms as well. So
Do they also consider any other amenities in the building?
of course, so we have a gym, of course. Obviously 2 food and beverage outlets, 3 Wi-Fi. I'm trying to think of any of the other amenities I always forget. No pool. There's no pool here, unfortunately.
We have pools here.
That's good. We'll send our guests over to your house. But yes, there are obviously other amenities.
Well, I came in late, I'm sorry. The books, how many books are there?
25,000.
And they're all, you can make.
Jill can tell you every title.
Should I start alphabetically?
Don't worry, we have a few more Roosevelt Island books to sell you.
That's
It's like
good.
fish stacks.
They're old textbooks is what they are.
They're all textbooks? Oh, okay. So no one's gonna steal them, that's for
Probably not.
Well, definitely, we always we look at our photos on the website. I know of all people here have really looked, and we do style our tables and our settings, and that's a perfect place to really put a lot of the history of Roosevelt Island, so that as people sit and interact with the space, they can have something.
I really think it's wonderful, have lunch with the lunatic asylum around you. Makes me feel at home.
Of course.
You talked about the design aspect in the room, like there's gonna be some historical sort of nods. Is there anything that would be reflecting the Nape tribe that existed here before European actually landed here?
I'm gonna have to get back to you, and we'll check with our design team. Just an interesting fact, if you're curious, we have an internal design and creative team and actually do all of this in-house. We have about a 25-person design team that does a tremendous amount of research. So I only say that because they probably did find something somewhere and incorporated it somehow, and I'll find out, of course. And if we didn't, we will.
Thank you.
A question about the parking garage.
Of course, and I think we do have a slide, right? So I'll get to the parking, because we've
Okay.
been spending a lot of time
And
on it.
just one other thing on the same thing, just so you know, it looks like you've got it all covered, but we have an art gallery on the island with local artists who have lots and lots and lots of beautiful pictures of Roosevelt Island and the different areas on the island. So if you
That's
menu
tremendous.
covers or anything like that.
Yeah, I'll definitely discuss it and bring it back to our design team. I think there are actually a few holes that we might be able to fill in.
Perfect,
so.
Jane knows how to reach me.
Good.
Right, Jane?
Sure do.
Yes, okay. Quick question about the design, sorry, was someone else?
That's okay.
Sorry. You mentioned Roosevelt Island Portraits was printed in the description, in the last slide, family portraits, but I didn't know, I was curious, is that happening and what?
Yeah, so I think it's,
Who are
so
those folks
those,
and-
I believe, are actually FDR family portraits that have been recreated down this hallway, so it's a way to kind
Aha.
of celebrate,
Okay,
his
gotcha.
role in Roosevelt Island.
In the job fairs, is there a program to give internships for local youth on the island?
We haven't discussed it yet, but I think there's certainly something, we do internship programs across the country in our hotels, and I think it's a great opportunity to look at. Absolutely.
Okay, so I missed something. Is that the restaurant or the hotel lobby or the lounge?
Well, so that's the trick, is a restaurant or a lobby, it's all in one space. So this is what we're calling our restaurant space. So this is your more classic dining, seating arrangements for actually having a meal, but, you know, every seat in our lobby is open to the public. It's meant to, if you have your coffee or anything else, you can have your lunch there, you can have your dinner there, so it's really meant to be very communal. But this is really, on the lower right is our restaurant space.
So those books,
Uh-huh.
presumably somebody could go, like, grab a book, sit down at a table and spend the day.
Absolutely, yeah.
Are they going to be required to get food?
No, in fact, you know, this is a very unique hotel for us, just given obviously proximity to New York City on the island with a new campus, but we have students in our lobbies nonstop, and I promise you, none of them are buying any food. Love it because it creates an energy, and we just believe if you walk into a hotel lobby and every seat is full, it's a different dynamic than when you walk in and it's quiet, you can hear a pin drop, and so we actually do encourage students. We hope maybe they buy like a cup of coffee, but no, well, every seat is available and welcome to the public.
Not that we're desperate for restaurants in Roosevelt Island or anything. Do you have any idea what the ETA is for the two restaurants?
Yeah, so they'll deliver together, and I'm gonna let Mark, our food and beverage pro and expert, talk a little bit more about that at the very end, but we're gonna deliver the entire building in the middle of summer altogether. I did just wanna, you know, I know some of these have been some hot buttons, so job postings, we are posted on at least one of the 3 local outlets. I know we're just waiting on 2 of the other local websites and different components to finally approve us and actually post our jobs locally. But we are posted locally for some management jobs. All management positions will be completed by April 1st, so that will be a general manager, the marketing coordinator. Those people will all be on site, a lot of the people you'll interact with every day. We're gonna do a hiring fair that's open to the public on Roosevelt Island. We usually do that about 2 months before opening, so that's really sometime in late April. And encourage anybody that knows anyone on the island that especially has hospitality experience to please apply, come to the fairs. You actually will walk out with an opportunity, if you meet the requirements, with a job that day in the hotel as part of the opening team. And then local activations, you know, we're unbelievably sensitive to the importance of the community here and our role that we play. And so we're gonna collaborate not just with Cornell, but with the community in terms of early tours into the building as we get a little nearer to completion, as we become a little bit less of a construction site. And for certainly the task force, a private tour. And then, as I mentioned earlier, some Roosevelt Island rates. I think Mark may speak a little bit, but the meeting rooms, which I know have come up, is 100%. You know, we don't want our rooms to sit empty all the time, so depending upon what's in there, we're totally open and providing reduced rates to the community. I think it's an important part of what we do.
Hi, speaking of amenities and useful tools, so to speak, any EV chargers?
For cars, we actually, I would imagine there are some in the Bloomberg Center. So we have a parking slide that I think will probably be helpful, because we have no parking in our building specifically, but we're working with SP Plus and the island as a whole in terms of kind of parking solutions. So I actually don't know for sure, but I imagine they have it.
Yeah, when you say discounts for community members, does that include guests of community members?
Friends and family,
Friends.
yes, yeah, we're gonna figure out exactly what that, how we'll identify who that is, so, you know, someone flying in from Los Angeles with no affiliation isn't all of a sudden a Roosevelt Island community member. But we're certainly friends and family, and that's really, important to us.
Chris?
This is awesome. Building on a lot of the conversation so far, there's a lot of interest among residents in the island in circular economy and cradle to cradle. And apologies, I missed this during the construction part, asking it then. So one bit as far as similar to the question about the education, the Verizon Education, Executive Education Center, how much non-virgin material is getting used in the construction. So like, hey, we're taking it, we're recycling it from something else into the space for the finishing of the hotel. And then also within the furnishing, the inside, the art, the everything else, there's a lot of emerging high-end art that's made from lots of other things that were tigers or whatever else, like just lots of different stuff. I know there's been conversations that a lot of residents have been curious about, and so just thinking about, hey, we're creating a new space, how can we create whether a one-time, now there's a new fixture, or it's a revolving set where local artists can repurpose things circularly into there.
Do you want to take the construction side?
On the construction side, I don't know what the exact percentages or anything, but similar to what Diana said, we are doing LEED silver, and a lot of, so every material that's used, both on the furnishing side as well as the building construction material side, goes through sort of a review process to see. So I don't know specifically recycled in the way that you're saying it. I don't know how that is, but there are strict requirements for all of the materials within the building. Again, building materials, and on the FF&E side, frankly, the paint has certain standards it needs to meet and whatnot.
And on the design side, art side, I'm not sure if we have anything that's being repurposed. I can tell you we have in the past in other projects. I can certainly check back and see if that's something that we do. We do have a pretty interesting kind of artist in residency program across the country. We haven't quite discussed what that might look like on a project like this, but that's something where you may have residents be able to kind of show or reuse and repurpose.
Does the restaurant do, will the restaurant do takeout? And if so, will you be using earth-friendly packaging? There's a movement on the island where we're changing the aluminum foils and the plastics into compostable and earth-friendly. And so the question is, would that be part of what you guys are doing?
I'm gonna say yes. But I know, I'm sure Mark, I'll let Mark give his background, and you know, he does, one of his restaurants has $1 million a year to carry out in Los Angeles, and I know how committed he is to the environment personally too, so I have no doubt what his plans are will be aligned with the residents.
I just had, sorry, one
Yeah.
question. I noticed about the jobs that it sounded like, but I may have misunderstood, that management jobs would already be full, but then later in April, residents.
So we're posted for residents, anybody can apply to those management jobs. We posted on all the community boards, and the local, can't remember exactly the website, but I know there's 3 that we really wanted to be posted on.
Well, we haven't finished the deal yet.
Okay, so that's one, like, we have to get on there.
Because I haven't seen those yet, not that I see everything, but.
I know we're on
seems
one
like-
just recently, and we have 2 more.
Main Street Wire?
Yep.
Is
No,
the
not
one-
anymore.
There is no more Main Street Wire.
It's up on the mainstreetwire.com.
No, not anymore though.
It's not up there?
No, I mean, it doesn't exist anymore.
Because the other 2 blogs
No,
that you
not
gave us
anymore.
weren't available.
You can talk to us about that.
Okay.
Yeah, we know about that.
Yeah, it would be, yeah, exactly, so.
You should talk.
Because April 1, you're probably already looking, right, for management, if you want those filled.
Correct, yeah, and we're really just hiring for 3 key roles right now,
Okay,
which is Ben and general manager and a marketing coordinator. So I know we were working on getting kind of the deal and everything finalized for posting everything locally. And,
Sure.
You know, the vast majority of the roles are obviously hourly positions and everything else that
Yeah.
that will be posted.
But
And
we,
management.
you know, who knows who the local talent is, right?
Absolutely,
So,
for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just curious about the staff that's gonna be in the restaurant. Is that a union, house?
So the food and beverage is non-union for the project, and the hotel with a few carve-outs is union, so housekeeping, engineers, things like that is union. Everybody's favorite topic, which is transportation and parking. We'll get on. We've been spending the time, so I'm not sure how many people are familiar with Highgate Hotels, who is our partner and operator in this project. They also do our hotel in Providence, Rhode Island. We all have 120 hotels in Manhattan, so by far the largest operator of hotels in New York City by a wide margin. And so we've been working very closely, particularly on the parking items, figuring out solutions. And we've actually narrowed a number down based on some other statistics of similar hotels. And as we've kind of mentioned, we don't believe, well, first of all, we're doing everything to encourage guests not to drive to this hotel, highlighting all of the ease of transportation from the train, the tram, and the ferry. For those that do drive, and I'll also say our employees, we have a plan that will not be parking on the island at all as well. They'll also be taking public transportation, or if a general manager lives in the suburbs, we'll actually parking in some other garages that Highgate manages, and just taking the tram or subway over. So we believe that number of hotel guests is really about 3%, which is really minimal on a nightly basis, on an overnight basis. And we've been working with SP Plus on a parking strategy and a plan. On those nights that we typically think, we are able to put some of those cars into the Tata Center, so don't necessarily need to utilize Motorgate on any sort of overflow night, or even if a guest is staying for multiple nights, we can actually put the car into Motorgate, keep it there for several days, keep it off the streets, no back and forth, until that guest ultimately leaves, and we return it. So we're finalizing all the details. Some of this will obviously just also be learning once the hotel's open, and we are learning from the inbound traffic and driving, but we're starting to finalize that kind of plan that we think is going to be the opening strategy, of course.
How is the street parking here during the day? 'Cause I know it's 8-hour parking. So that would actually get you, you know, feeding the meter twice would actually get you to 7 o'clock when parking is free for the night.
Yep.
So, are there a lot of empty spots around? Or
Not now, no, no, because you can park from 7 PM to 7 AM for free. And if all the hotel guests take that, the Islanders are gonna be very unhappy.
You know,
Around here? Yeah. Pretty empty,
But not late.
but I don't know what happens during the day, I'm not doing it in the day.
our initial indications were we were going to try to stay off the streets. You know, there's a lot of other uses for those, primarily residents, anyone else visiting. So that was our initial instinct, was not to do that, but either Motorgate or Tata.
I'm just curious how you got the 97%, because it would just seem to me most of the people who are gonna be staying in a hotel don't live nearby. I would think an awful lot of them would be flying in. You fly into LaGuardia, you can't get the ferry, you can't get the tram, obviously.
So in full transparency, what that doesn't include, that would be anybody parking overnight or bringing a car overnight, actually requiring parking. So we do expect Ubers or taxis or things like that would be dropping off.
Taxis, I get that, but
and leaving.
don't a lot of people who fly in from other places rent cars for the week or whatever length of time, when they have to park?
Not anymore, now, especially not with Manhattan. And, you know, if you go downtown, I don't even know what some of the parking rates are downtown. I mean, it's $100 to park overnight.
It would be too
So
expensive to
you're
rent a
assuming
car
you're
to
taking
park
taxis
for.
and that kind of
Exactly,
thing.
yeah.
So then my next question would be, any idea of the traffic that'll be coming along Main Street?
We've looked at it and have done our best. I don't think we know exactly what that looks like, and part of it is the makeup of the guests on any given day. Is it a group? Is it from out-of-town guests? Are we bringing anybody over from the surrounding communities? So I'm not sure if we know much in, or even if you have some experience on like
There
what
must be
Uber
some numbers on the
drop-offs.
environmental impact
or-
statement. I'm curious what they were.
We can certainly look back and see what was found in terms of drop-offs and taxis and things like that. Of course.
Did you say how many guest rooms you'll have?
We have 224 guest rooms.
Sorry, just piggybacking, building on that last question. I remember you mentioned that you're trying to direct guests as much as possible
Of course,
to each of the existing ones. I was wondering if that got as granular as, hey, if you're arriving from LaGuardia, take whatever transit you want to the Astoria ferry terminal, and that'll take you directly to the campus or something like that. So that way they know where to take their Lyft or their Uber to.
Correct, yeah. So we'll do a lot of that in like pre-stay emails,
Okay.
Things like that, messaging to larger groups, in kind of direct communications. We'll have it on our website in terms of, okay, easiest ways to get to transportation. We've debated, we want to convince the community or any of our guests how easy it actually is to get to and from the island. It's going to be the most unique kind of argument, I think, in part of our positioning, and so we've discussed potentially opening even with public transportation credit to your room. So we'll cover the tram to and from, we'll cover the subway, especially to help encourage people and create some of that traffic.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you, this is really exciting. Two things I wanted to ask. Can you add to your pre-stay messaging that it's a zero waste hotel? If it is or not, low waste, zero waste, but, encourage folks to bring their own reusable water bottle, to not, wash the sheets every single day, like a lot of standard hotels do standardly now, to just conserve in general on a day-to-day basis. And then second, the New York City ferry, we love it, and the dean also loves the ferry and promised to support it. It is wildly expensive for New York City to run and subsidize that ferry, and we're always concerned that we're gonna lose some of the service, and perhaps it only becomes rush hour, and there's a lot of different models that are being looked at. So we just want to put that out there, that we want support of this ferry, and I know it's good for the campus, it's good for the hotel and the restaurant, and the dean has expressed a willingness to support, so we just want to throw that out there so you guys, when you fly back to Chicago tomorrow, that's something that's still in everyone's mind. And we have worked hard unsuccessfully to get a free transfer from the New York City ferry to the MTA.
Oh, perfect.
And we just are always trying to continue that work. So I just want to have everyone in the room kind of hear that.
We, that's really appreciated. I wasn't aware of some of the ferry, and 100%, I think that's so important to us, is that transportation option. Some of the ideas we've always had about the ferry, and just, getting to, it's almost a romantic way to travel to the island. And we've had lots of dreams of what that might feel like if you're coming to dine or coming to the roof and then leaving, and so we are very supportive of the ferry, and will be whatever we can do, and let us know if it can be helpful in those conversations.
And the messaging, the zero waste messaging, is that?
Zero waste messaging, and I know we had a slide, I don't think we included it, I know you missed the last meeting, but we talked our practices across the country in terms of environmental.
What's the hotel's address?
22 North Loop
I
Road.
can't hear you.
22 North
Okay,
Loop Road.
because I can just picture the Lyft driver driving around and around, circumnavigating the southern end of the island, looking for, because you can't use the North Service Road, right? That's not considered. So your legal entrance is on the North Loop Road or on Main Street?
North Loop Road. It's 22 North Loop
So
Road.
people can drive in back of Sports Park and drive down that street?
Yes.
It's a two-way street or one-way street?
One way.
It's
One way.
okay. It's been a long time. Okay, so that they can cut around at the back of the tram, come down North Loop Road, and you get off in the corner.
Yeah, and we've discussed it with many previous ones, but there's a sort of a drop-off zone on North Loop Road for the hotel.
An indentation.
It's not an indent, but like a loading zone, if you will. Not our loading dock, but a place where, cars can drop. So cars couldn't park there, so that you could, pull up, drop off, unload, etc.
We don't want anyone lost at South Point going
Yeah.
around and around.
Yeah, agreed.
And just, of course.
No, I was just drinking.
Behind you.
I was just like, should I buy something? She
drinks a lot, so. I just have a question about the broad impact upon the infrastructure, particularly as it pertains to rush hour for islanders as it stands now, which is pretty tough, and of course after hours, for example, as well as, and this would also perhaps have an impact upon even the island garage, if you have that in mind. So have you thought about the impact upon what we consider normal days here, and whether that's going to be overwhelmed?
I know we've discussed it, certainly, and I'm assuming that means, obviously, our expectation is a lot of our guests will be leaving the islands during the day, whether they're working downtown or everything else, and will be on public transportation, even with the residents. You know, I will say, we expect the occupancy levels of the hotel to be somewhere in the 65 to 70% range, which means on any given night, you're talking about 100 people tops, which, I don't expect to kind of maximize or really put a huge strain on the additional kind of public transportation. Obviously, those numbers will flex up and down. Some will still drive and some will still take cars. So I think between all of the various modes of transportation, I don't expect kind of hotel guests to really create a huge impact. And we have discussed Motorgate in particular as it relates to events and things like that. If we host anything and do get a tremendous amount of drive-in and how we'll work, and it is nice to have a partner in SP Plus that knows kind of the Motorgate and operates the Motorgate, and will also be operating our hotel, so they'll have a good understanding of the needs and the requirements of the residents, and ultimately how we can kind of work together to maximize all the spaces on the island. Hopefully that helps address the question. Yes.
Do you project, what percentage of non-Cornell affiliated people do you project attending being customers of the hotel? And are you doing like a general marketing plan for people who are visiting New York City to consider the Roosevelt Island Graduate Hotel as a place to stay?
Absolutely. We originally, when we thought about this and have worked with Cornell over the years, we thought kind of Cornell affiliated is kind of a broad term. We thought would be about 40%. There is quite a few room nights coming down from Ithaca on a day-to-day basis, going into Manhattan right now, working with them to kind of find preferred options in the city in terms of the hotel and affiliation with Cornell as our partners. And then in terms of a marketing plan, we think the project is unbelievably unique. I think it tells a great story for Roosevelt Island. And then I actually think the product, you've seen some renderings, I think 65% of the rooms have almost floor-to-ceiling windows of the New York City skyline. The average size is larger than downtown Manhattan. If many of us have stayed downtown, you're often staring at a building about 10 feet away from your window. So it's an unbelievable product that will not appeal to everybody, but I think certainly has an appeal to it from a destination perspective. And this, I'll touch very briefly on this, but we talked a lot about guests, but also internally working on minimizing kind of supply runs, working with Highgate and their kind of additional hotels downtown in terms of deliveries on a day-to-day basis. Just really being smart about how we're going to minimize any of that coming in and out of the island. And then kind of the final point, I know F&B waste has been discussed a lot. Tommy, do you want to give kind of an update on the program we're going to participate in?
Yeah, so working with Mark to participate in a grant program.
Can you speak up and maybe stand up? That would be great.
Working with Mark and the F&B team on a program that subsidizes a compost piece of equipment for F&B waste that will ultimately, to David's point, minimize the amount of trash pickups needed at the hotel, specifically related to the F&B operation. So we're well underway with that and excited to be partnering with local university on a grant program.
I know we're excited to see the dehydrator as well. And, I was
curious what type of hardware? Is it another dehydrator, or what's the technology?
I'm not totally familiar with it. I have it in my inbox. We can follow up for sure.
Cool, awesome, thank you.
With that, I wanted to bring Mark up quickly, give a quick introduction. I know food and beverage is everybody's